All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the webinar From Curiosity to Real World Problem Solving, See, Think, Wonder, hosted in collaboration with Twin Oaks Education. My name is Jamie Lee, and I am the Education Design Specialist at HundrED, and I'm so excited that you've joined us all today for this insightful discussion. So this webinar is part of a series of online events hosted by innovators selected from the Global Collection 2026. And today I'm excited to be handing it over to Twin Oaks Education, who are the innovators behind the See, Think, Wonder Challenge, which you will hear more about shortly. A few housekeeping items. The webinar will be recorded and the recording will be published on our event page and emailed to you in a few days. So don't worry if you miss anything. And then there will also be hopefully some time for Q&A at the end. But if you have questions at any time, you can also put them in the chat so we can address them. Also, there are translated captions enabled for this webinar. So you can enable them by clicking, there's the three dots at the bottom, you click more and then show captions, and then you can either have the captions in English or you can translate it to a different language. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Maggie Lin, the founder of Twin Oaks Education, who will be running today's webinar. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Jamie, and thank you so much for inviting us to join the webinar today. Um, I would love to do a quick introduction about myself, and also I'm really glad to have this opportunity to present here because I'm so Twin Oaks basically is my startup. So I started this when I was studying MIT as my MBA, part of my MBA program, and that's where I find my passion in education. So before my MBA in MIT, I was working in BCG as a consultant in Taipei and San Francisco. So coming from a very different background than the typical educators, I'm more like working in the global business environment before I started to do an actual practitioner in front of all the high school students. So my heart is always about what the world has been heading toward. What's the trend? What should my student knows about the world? How can they be better prepared to become a global citizen when they started to really work in a global context? So in my mind, I always cares about how we can empower our students to really become a global citizen. And I also, with my background, I always hope that the students that we cultivate will be able to make some change that we wanted to see in the society. So I always see myself a little bit like a researcher, designer, and practitioner at the same time because from my previous business background, research is like the foundation of doing any kind of research or any kind of new innovation. And designing the course, I always wanted to see how it actually played out in front of the students. So Seizing Wonder Challenge has been our nonprofit initiative over 6 years. And today I wanted to just share with you a couple of very exciting things that we see from the challenge and how this is becoming a key to unlock a lot of students' potentials. So let me firstly talk about what is Seizing Wonder. So Seizing Wonder is a thinking routine developed by Harvard Graduation School of Education. I met Dr. Flossie Chua from Project Zero. She's from the Harvard Graduate School of Education. She's one of the principal investigator running one of the project under Project Zero. So because when I was studying at MIT, we have a lot of collaboration with Harvard, and that's how I got to understand what seizing wonder is. This has been one of the very powerful thinking routines in Harvard. And let me introduce you with a like an official document, what it has been written in Harvard Graduation School Education. You can find this official document on their website as well. So seizing wonder is like a quick reminder, a few steps that you can invite the student to do more thorough observation and thinking. So usually it will stimulate the students' curiosity when they wanted to know more from the observation. They wanted to think further, make thoughtful interpretation. So these are the three prompts that we usually ask the student. So what do you see from this picture, from this object, from this painting, or from this graph? What do you actually see, and what do you think about that? What make you wonder from observing that? It may seems very simple, but if you think it further, especially what we do in the challenge, we want to start from observation to insight and inquiry. So when we said about see, we actually want the student to really slow down, looking very slowly and looking very carefully about what they can see. And then start to make interpretation about why do I see specific thing here? Why does it look like the way it is on the graph or on the picture? What's the meaning of it? And then they start to ask question and what they wanted to know further about it. This is where we usually see a setting of the fire for curiosity. So once the students start to look further and look more like detail, they will become very curious. Why does something happens on that photo, or why does something that show on the photo seems very different from what they thought before? And we think this really creates some inner motivation for students to create. Why do we think this is really important today? Like with all the discussion about AI, technology, and as an internet era, everyone knows information is super rich on the internet. Today, the classroom is not about the content anymore. It's more about how we really bring the student to application. How do we really bring the student to use the content they capture from the classroom to actual usage? So there's so many information out there. And also because you can ask AI about any question you wanted to know, you get a fast answer. And also, you might have a lot of problem around the world and you just ask AI, get a quick answer, but you don't think it's actually working because the real problem is actually pretty messy. And a lot of time it requires you to be aware of the system for that problem set, not just the problem itself. So having the thinking routines like see, sing, wonder can really ask the student to slow down, have more disciplined observation skills, and make interpretation of what they see into a more meaningful stuff. So in Harvard, we always talk about it like there are so many thinking skills you can cultivate for the students. You can invite them to do more practice like design thinking. But we think thinking routine is not just ability to think, it's also an inclination to think and also the sensitivity of what to see, what to think, what kind of interpretation you can make out of it. So here we are going to share with you some mini exercise, some actual practice we use, and why do we think that's important. Firstly, I remember for all the people who have registered for this event, you probably already see this term. We call this design-based thinking and creation. I know that there's a lot of talks about maker education, entrepreneurship education. All these are very important. You probably also ask your student to make proposal for certain problem set, or your student might be joining some kind of case competition. They are proposing something based on what they see. But a lot of time, if you put in your seats at the judge's role, you might find this proposal is not solid enough. It's not based on sufficient evidence or sufficient observation to come to that conclusion. So when we think about what we actually hope to see from the student is that we hope the students can make their design or make their proposal based on more solid ground than a typical imagination. So we wanted to also talk a little bit about why we think having the student become a very innovative creator of the society is important. I want to quote from one of the interviews I had with Edward Clapp. He's also another principal investigator from Project Zero in Harvard. So I want to quote it from what he said. I hope the students will not remain passive consumer of the society, but become an actual like active creator for the society. Because as you can see from every object around your office or in like in front of you, these are the things that's been created by someone in the society for another person to use. So every creation has the social meaning. Every creation is very meaningful because you're leaving some human wisdom within that object to inspire some other people to create something upon your current creation. So creating is a way to participate in a society. And we hope that every student knows, no matter what fields this person is going to work in or what kind of work they are going to do in the future, they are engaging in some form of creation and they are creating something meaningful and useful for another person. So helping the student to notice what matter in the world, what matter for another person, to make sense of the complexity of the situation or understanding what kind of system they are living in, to really create something that will be super helpful for the another person in a more sustainable way is very important. And also, we hope that the student will be able to respond to those questions with grounded actions. Those are what we hope to see from the students. So let me quote from another graph that Edward has presented before. So helping the student become an actual designer for a sophisticated problem set, we firstly want the student to look very closely at the problem or at the phenomenon. Here in Finland, we talk about phenomenon-based learning. How do you notice a phenomenon? Because you look at it very closely. You're observing what's the causality between two things, what cause another things, what is intertwined. It might be like creating the cause and effect periodically. This is what we want the student to do first. Look very closely about it. And then try to explain and explore what is within this problem set, what is intertwined with each other, what is connected to each other. And then from that observation, you might be able to find an opportunity to create something new to make a change to what you have seen. Again, this seems super simple. So I want to bring last reminder before we jump into our first mini exercise. Again, I will be happy to share all this information, but you can also find it on the internet by searching the agency by design. This is another research work that Edward has shared with everyone around the world freely. So, firstly, if you wanted to look closely, it seems to be super simple, but actually, we want you to notice everything. Noticing everything is really hard, even for teachers, because we've already been trained to ignore a lot of irrelevant signal. So a lot of time we are only focusing on the things we wanted to see and ignoring all the details. However, a lot of time those details are actually telling us a lot of useful information or signaling something that we didn't notice before. So looking closely means we want you to cast a net to capture everything you can observe from the picture. You might want it to look at the same picture over and over again, and you might find something new every time. You might also want to structure your thoughts by categories. For example, what are its materials? What is its structure? How is it being used? Like using some category to help you observe something that you didn't notice before. You might, if you can get the chance to really observe this project products or and objects in a physical way, you might take it out, look at a different angle. You might compare it side by side with something similar. You might also look at from a different like bird eye view or like different kind of view to really observe something new. So it seems super simple. Let me jump right into our first exercise so you can notice how much you can actually see from this picture. So the picture that I'm going to share with you is one of the picture we share with our students in the See Think Wonder Challenge. Usually in the very first round, we ask the student to observe an object that people used 100 years ago versus an object that used today. So here, let's look at a toaster. From the left-hand side, you can see a toaster that's developed like 100 years ago. That's being used by actual human beings 100 years ago. And the right-hand side is a typical toaster, modern toaster we use today. So here, the first exercise is to look very closely at the two pictures. Try to notice every single differences between the two. What are the new changes that the new designer, the modern designer has made for the new toaster? I'll just throw out the first answer as a kickstart. So as you can notice, that one of the key difference is that the ancient toaster doesn't have a metal shield outside of the toaster. The toast is completely exposed to the air. But from the modern toaster, you can see that there's some shield, like a metal shield, seems to keep the toaster within the machine. So that would be one of the observation you can actually see from the picture. I want everyone to try to practice, write down what you have seen as the differences that the designer made over the 100 years, and try to put what you have observed in the message box, in the chat box, in in the Zoom. Write down everything that you see here. So this is where you can try to do the first exercise. Writing it down is very different from just thinking it out loud or having it in your mind. So I want to pause here for a little bit just for everyone to write something down. Okay. Okay. Good. I see every like some people are trying to make some more observation down. So I want to point out one of the example that people share. So one person has mentioned about the electricity. Okay. It's really hard to tell whether the toaster 100 years ago does not use electricity or not, because we don't really see the actual like facts to make that interpretation. It will be a very nice hypothesis, but we cannot infer it from the picture directly. If you I wanted to tell you an actual information, you can see that there's some two little thing right here. You can go on and look for the internet. You will actually see that it actually does have it does use electricity. So one of this example is what we want the student to do. A lot of the time, the student make bold assumption and they cannot differentiate what is assumption versus facts. So asking them to look at it very closely also help them to start to differentiate it too. So as you can mention, a lot of people are talking about some facts you can actually point out from the picture. One of the tactic that Harvard use is the thing you see is what you can point it with your finger on the picture. If you can point it with your finger on the picture, is that is something you actually see. If you cannot point it with your finger, it's probably not there yet. It's your hypothesis. You either make that inferences from your past experience, or you might just assume it might be there. Okay, so this is how this is playing out. I'm going to throw a couple of observation I see. I notice that people talking about there's no control. Absolutely right. You can also see some buttons here. You can also see some like it seems to be something you can tune the scale, which you don't observe that sort of thing at the left hand side. And you probably also notice from the left hand side some of the toes are on top. So it has seems to be some rack that you can rest. You can leave the toast on top, which is not there anymore in the modern ones. Or maybe you can argue that we can still leave our toast on top of the toaster. And you can also see that there's a lot of wire for the left hand side. And also from the left hand side, you see the bottom seems to made out of ceramic, maybe glass, but the material does seems to be different. Okay, the material does to seem to be different. And also you can see the coloring pattern. It seems to be some flower at the left hand side. Right hand side is very simple, simplicity. You don't see any decorations. You can also see that there seems to be some holes at the side of the toaster for the modern one. It seems to maybe the function of it is to let the air flow out from the inside. So you can make a lot of interpretation about why we make certain new changes. Maybe the new one has more functions that you can choose from. You can choose different heat. You can use it for different purposes. And maybe they find a way to use more energy efficient way to keep the toaster warm with less electricity. So observation can tell you a lot of things. This is like a quick exercise. Let's move on to the second exercise. So here I'm presenting you what I actually see from Boston, from the MGH, Massachusetts General Hospital. You will see Isodone, which is the picture on the right-hand side. Isodone has been very famous because this has been known for where the surgeon first developed how you can put a patient into sleep before you actually make the surgery. So as you can see from the picture in front, they are trying to paint it how all these surgeons develop ether, how they first test out ether on the actual patient when they do a surgery on his neck. So they leave the picture in the middle of the ether dome to remind everyone the scene, how they develop, how they discover ether will be able to put a patient into sleep. So let me put enlarged photos for that picture. Don't panic. There'll be some like a surgery type of scene. What I want you to observe is this. This is a surgery scenario like over 150 years ago or so. All the gentlemen you see in the picture are ancient surgeons. This definitely seems super different from the surgery that we have in the modern day. I want you to take a close look again, put down what you observe seems very different from modern days, and also talks about why do you think it is so different? Why were they look so strange at the past? In the picture, make your interpretation about why it is the way it is. Put it in the chat box. Again, you can write down everything you notice, anything you looks seems strange, different from the modern days, or anything you observe from the picture, and tell me why do you think it is the way it is. Great observation. I see someone says that there's no glove. Yes, that's absolutely right. And why there's no glove is because like 150 years ago, the medical researcher haven't discovered that germs and bacteria will actually infect another person. So they don't know they should actually protect themselves. So that's a great observation. Okay. Yeah, great interpretation of that. That's perfect. And you can see that they're wearing suits. Yes, that's absolutely right. So modern day, they care more about safety and all that. And in the past, it's more about my social status. It's about like I'm more superior. I knows a lot. I'm a doctor. So wearing suits when they're doing actual surgery is the actual practice back then. Yes. And you see that no woman, absolutely, that's in America. That's the time when the woman's rights is not there yet. Um, right, no specific light. So maybe at that time, those electricity and that kind of equipment is not so readily there yet. And as you can probably see, I'm hoping that somebody has noticed a very subtle signal. So here I'm going to disclose that with you. So if you can see the statue at the top right, you might have noticed that's the statue right here. So the scene that you actually see in the picture is happening right here in the middle back then, 150 years ago. It's the actual scene. So this is like an actual surgery an ER, an emergency room. It's also serving as some educational purposes that all the other surgeons might be able to observe it. And in order to accommodate that many surgeons, like intentively make it like a theater mode so that everyone can look in the middle. And what you don't see from the picture is on top of it is a dome. So it has the window, try to collect as much sunlight as possible. So this is really, really nice. This is a really nice picture that you can actually start to embark on a lot of meaningful questions with the students regarding history, regarding medical development, how people discover germs, infections, bacteria, how people look at their social status by wearing specific outfit. Like all these discussions are very meaningful kickoff for a very interdisciplinary lecture. So having all those things is a very nice way to spark students' curiosity. If you are now feeling you're more curious about how the surgeon worked 150 years ago, you're there. This is the exact reason why Harvard and Project Zero is trying to promote this idea with more and broader audience. If you are educators, besides having a Zoom call asking all the students to type what they have seen from the picture, you might be wondering in the classroom how might we ask the student to write something down and I can see that immediately. So this is another good tool you can possibly use. This is written in Chinese. I don't think it really matters, but this is a tool that probably a lot of educators know. It's called Padlet. So you can send a link to the students, then all the students can use their mobile phone or laptop to share what they have observed in the picture and what do they actually see and what they think this is about and what they wonder. So every student can do the same exercise just like we did in the classroom, like immediately. So what is so important about all these exercise? So what happens in this exercise is that firstly, once you really have some time to focus on observing, taking down notes of what you see, your judgment would just slow down because you don't want to jump right into the judgment. So the student will stay away from bold assumption, but really slow down and stay with the facts, stay with the evidence before they move on to a conclusion. Secondly, their skills to interpret will just enhance because they have more capacity and more time to think more thoroughly so that they can bring up some thoughtful interpretation. Thirdly, like what we see from the surgeon picture, once you have some very nice picture really spark their curiosity, they will ask a lot more questions. They want to do more. So this is really, really, really helpful. And lastly, having those curiosity will really get the student excited about what kind of action I can take. For example, in the toaster exercise, the following question we ask immediately is what kind of toaster you will invent it, what kind of toaster you will create or invent for the next 100 years if you are the designer for the toaster. Or if you are a medical like researcher or like surgeon, you are going to develop a new skill set to do the surgery. What kind of new skill that you think human beings really needed at this time? So these are the things that will really spark the students to think what they want to do in the future, what they might be able to enable in the future. So action becomes so helpful. Okay. So I wanted to encourage and leave this sentence to you. This is what we always tell our students. Let the world be your classroom. Don't let the classroom be your world. Try to look at everything around you. Think about who invented it. Why do they invented it this way? Why is it designed this way? Will help you to think how I can invent it something or create something for the world in the future. In order to do that, we educators need to help the student to notice what matters and make sense of complexity to respond it with grounded actions. What we have already exercised is to practice the notice. Well, now I want to talk a little bit about complexity. Because for the student to really make a useful proposal, a lot of time, why the proposal doesn't look really sophisticated enough is because they forgot about specific stakeholders. They forget about some long-term effects, or like they don't know about the side effect of something. So that's where we wanted to student not just seeing the obvious, but also noticing some phenomenon or noticing some correlation between things. So here I'm going to introduce you another thinking routines Harvard use a lot. It's called part people interactions. So for a certain thing, for example, like a society as a system, you might ask the students what are the parts of, let's put a simple example. If you want a student to research about how the city government has run, what are the things they are doing, and who is enabling that system to run. You might ask them to look at an organization chart of a city government and say, what are the parts that you see from the organization? Who are those people connected to this system? And how do these people in the system interact with each other or with the parts of the system to make the system work? So how does a change in specific elements might affect the whole system? So this is where we start to do more advanced observations. We want the student to now look at the system, not just the obvious, but also more sophisticated things. So here is just one of the thinking routine. Another useful thinking routine is called part purpose complexity. This one goes hand in hand with the previous one because a lot of time students don't understand, why do I have to look at the parts of the system? What's the point of it? The point is, I want you to think about what is the purpose for specific parts. It's there for a reason. So think about what's the reason for that part to exist within the system. And then we can now think about what is the complexity for this part and the purpose, what's the relationship of the two or the other way around. This is the way we help the student to elevate their observation into a more advanced skills. Seems to be so sophisticated, so let me put it into an actual example. This is a super simple system. As you can probably tell from the picture, this is a pen. This is a pen. So a pen is a system too, especially it's an automated pen that you can clip on it and you can just start to write something with the pen. So you can also ask the student to disassemble the pen and look for different part of the pen, what comes together to compose a pen. What does each part do? What kind of role each part plays to compose, to consist, like really compose a pen together. So they can write down the reflection of each parts to think about what's the purpose for this part, what's the purpose for that part. And all together they know this is the whole thing that comes together. And that different parts of it is also connecting or impacting the other parts. So having this concept as a simple foundation, you can also see that why when we are talking about more sociology study, it's usually harder for the student, or business case competition. Why is it harder? Because it's involving system. It's not just involving one system, it's involving several systems. So sometimes we want to help the student to see what's the key parts of it within that system, think about what's the purpose of those parts, so they can wonder what the system look like. System is a very conceptual, even sometimes metacognitive idea for the students. So helping the student to start from looking at the parts, understanding how all the parts play together as a system, and also think about who are the people interacting with the system will help them to form the complexity thinking structure. So it starts from simplicity, but it might go up there as a complex thinking structure for them to comprehend a situation more thoroughly. That's what we mean by make sense of complexity. Now, let me move on to the last part. How do we respond it with grounded actions? So here I'm going to share with you another actual question we share in the Seizing Wonder Challenge. So this is the exercise we actually do this year. So we asked the students, so this is one of the prompt we tell them, like, hey, for the Seizing Wonder Design Office, we receive a commission. The client is the German railway. They come to us because they notice something they cannot explain. What is it? They keep on receiving some repeating user comment talking about they know buying ticket from their website is cheaper, but they still end up using another British platform website to purchase the tickets. Why is that? Let me share with you the web page. This is the web page for that British platform. To buy a train ticket, you just enter where you want to go, from where, one way or round trip, when you're heading out, how many people, and then you can just find the cheapest tickets on the platform. Instead, here is the German website. It does, well, you wouldn't say it's sophisticated. It's still like writing down where you start, where you end, how many people, where you want to take. But taking a very detailed look at the two web page, you kind of still do notice that this one seems to be simpler to comprehend, to understand, to know what to do, versus this one just seems to be more sophisticated somehow. So the student they might feel that emotion or the feeling that this seems to be slightly more sophisticated, but they do not know why. So asking them to look at very closely, writing down what they see as the differences, trying to make interpretation of why the other one seems to be easier to follow. We ask the students to use this kind of like cheat sheet to help them make more thorough thinking into creation. So we asked the student to firstly screenshot what you see from the British web page, the trend line, screenshot what you see there that you think is very easy to understand, and screenshot the same function but in the German railway website. Tell us what is the better design you see and why do you think they are better? And also talk about what my consumer prefer this kind of experience than the others. And then at the end, we ask them, overall, with all the 10 observations you see, name out the three major changes you will recommend the German railway to change on their website. So this is a very easy step-by-step ways to guide the student to make a grounded proposal with the evidence, with the facts they see. They have sufficient time to slow down, write down their observation and interpretation before they jump to a proposal or solution. That time, the time to think, the time to observe is so important. Just like what we did previously, with that time, you will just have more solid evidence before you jump right into conclusion. So in order for us to enable the student to do this or might encourage them to do more thorough observation, interpretation, we also develop a rubric for the student to make the grounded proposal. So here I'm just sharing with you some of the rubric that we share with the students. For observation, very important, we always want them to start to look for as many useful information as possible. So we want them to have substantial, valuable information that's relevant to the problem. Secondly, we want them to make some clear inferences from the observation to the problems that they are trying to solve. And we want them to differentiate the hypothesis versus the actual facts. So we wanted to know whether this is based on their common sense or inferences from the picture or actual facts or a specific logic. And for the proposal, as you can see from the last two sections, we want the student to start to talk about where does that proposal coming from? What do you see that makes you say so that you wanted to do this proposal? And we also want them to outline the reasoning in a very logical and easy way to follow. And I also want them to think further than just proposal, but think about the system. Think about who are the stakeholders involved in this. For your proposal, how does this impacting all the people that might be connected to this system? What's the short-term, mid-term, long-term impact? What are the side effects? What's the investment? all that. We want the student to be aware of all these so that they will be able to make some grounded proposal than a general idea. So right now, so far I've been talking about some of the exercise in the Ceasing Wonder, but you probably still don't really understand what that is. So let me play this a quick video so that you can just quickly know what Ceasing Wonder Challenge is, especially for my friends internationally. If it's the first time you heard about it, this challenge is open for anyone around the world to participate. It's not just limited to Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore. It's open online, especially for the first few rounds. As you can see, it's all conducted online. So let's just play this video very quickly.
Embark on a journey of discovery and innovation. The See Think Wonder Challenge is an international challenge rooted in Harvard thinking routines, which sparks curiosity and cultivates critical thinking. Designed for students aged 15 to 18, this challenge empowers you to see the world through a new lens. Now in Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore, partner with industry leaders and make a real-world impact. Let's embark on this journey through 2 stages, Qualification Challenge and Real Case Challenge. The Qualification Challenge is your first step with 2 online rounds. In the first round, observe and compare images to discern the changes and underlying human necessities over the past century. In the final round, analyze scenes from different nations and learn from global perspectives. Each round will challenge you to think critically and creatively. You will receive a gold, silver, or bronze thinking certificate based on your performance. If you are qualified to join Real Case Challenge, you will advance to the 3-day hackathon hosted in Taipei City. This will be a team-based case competition. You will talk to corporate leaders to dive into the topic you research on. Dive into case studies, develop innovative solutions, and pitch your ideas directly to corporations. This is a rare chance for high school students to practice Harvard thinking routines, apply these skills to create innovations, and interact with real-world corporate leaders.
不要让教室成为你的全世界，
让全世界成为你的教室。你不需要很厉害才能开始，你需要开始才能很厉害。
Don't miss this opportunity. Join us. Revive your mind and shape the future.
As you can probably see from the video, it seems to be a lot of in Mandarin, but this is actually bilingual. So all the students who wanted to present their idea in English, feel free to do that. So I just wanted to say why this is a very powerful support for the classroom or school. Firstly, I know a lot of school teachers do want to cultivate critical thinkers, but the subject teaching in the school is already a heavy burden. So inviting the student to join this challenge, this is a completely non-profit free challenge that the student doesn't have to pay anything at all, but it becomes a natural training for the students to grow over the challenge. So it's a very low barrier for the teacher to having this as a supplement for their existing teaching, or like asking the student just to join the challenge and cultivate their skills. Secondly, our challenge has the routine that naturally generate the evidence, interpretations, and next steps. So some teacher would like to blend that into the actual teaching. So they might just ask the student a lot of following question after they have finished the challenge. And also starting from last year, we started to launch a school team system. So all the schools that's forming the school teams will receive a 60 to 90 minutes training workshop, either online or offline. It could be conducted in English or Mandarin. Again, that's completely free. And also for the schools that's trying to make more cross-subject, interdisciplinary, project-based learning, this is just a natural fit. Because like all the real world problem, usually it's involving many knowledge across different subjects. So what we do every year is that we'll usually open for application for the student to sign up for that challenge starting from September. And we usually finish around the application by Christmas. And that's also the time when the school team, the school has a school team, they will have this in-school workshop. Then from January to April is usually where the challenge will be hosted. Like you see from the video, for the first two rounds is completely conducted online. Everything is hosted on the website, so the student can just go on the website and finish the challenge themselves. For the last two rounds, the third round is also an online session. It's like a verbal test. Like the student will go online, the judges will ask them questions. And for the last round, it will be the on-site hackathon in Taipei. So the rest of the year, we will get to design a new challenge for the next year. And starting from this September, Flossie and I are also going to do Seizing Wonder teacher training. So if you're interested in knowing more about how you can use Seizing Wonder and more thinking routine to cultivate design-based creator, we highly recommend you to join the Seizing Wonder teacher training, which will start an application around summertime. And also outside of that, we Twingos are trying to put all the Seizing Wonder methodology to the World Classroom program so the student can actually see the world around them. So if you wanted to explore how your schools or classroom might fit, whether Seizing Wonder might fit into it, it's very flexible. If you don't want it to form a school team or you find it might be too challenging, you can just introduce this challenge to your students. They can just sign up for it and they can join. If they don't want to join the hackathon in Taiwan, they can still join the two online challenge to practice their thinking skills and observation skill. If your school wanted to form school teams, particularly if your school's from Taiwan and Hong Kong and Singapore, it's very easy. Just fill out the form and let us know. If you're the school outside of these three region, but you want to form school teams and all that, we will try to see if we can make it work. In that case, just send your request to us and we'll try to see if we can accommodate your school. If you want to join the teacher training specifically is only open for Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Singapore at this moment. However, if you want more teacher training somewhere else, let us know. We will try to see if we can make it work the year after. And also, if your school is looking for some school-wide collaboration, for example, some school reach out to us and say that they really wanted to make it like a school-wide courses for all the students, and they wanted to tailor it into specific needs, we might be able to help them to sort it out. Furthermore, as I mentioned earlier, right now our main staff are located in Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Singapore, but we are happy to make it more internationally. So we are actively looking for organizations that's especially outside of Taiwan that are willing to host it. When I say hosted, we are still going to design it. We are going to launch it. We are more looking for partners that will be willing to broadcast this information in your region and help to do some daily communication. That's pretty much it. So if you're an organization that's looking for partners to expand this to your region, feel free to write me an email. Here is my email, maggieling@twingos-edu.com. I'll be looking forward to discuss the potential with you. If your school, like I mentioned earlier, there are some 4 different stages that you can do it for your school. Happy to do any kind of collaboration if you wanted to talk further. As for tools that you can use for tomorrow, I highly recommend it. Everyone to go on to our websites. There are a lot of material, both in Mandarin or English, for the teacher. As you can hop on to the website for the teacher, you will see that we actually already prepare. So some of the online teacher training materials are recorded, so you can listen to some of the video teacher training we had last year. And for some of the resources, if you just wanted to use some of the challenge that we had before to present it in your classroom, you feel free to do that. We also have some teacher manual to teach you how to use these materials. And for further information about what HundrED has been doing and what are the thinking routines, you can also see some of the official documents from here. And also here, for the agency by design, sorry, I don't know why it's not coming out. So for the agency by design, we've talked about the materials that it will help your students to think further how they can like casting a net to capture every information you need, how you can explore complexity and find opportunity from here. You can also see all these information up on the websites. So we have a lot of resources out there. These are all free, open source, and there's also some lesson plans you can use by different subject teacher. So feel free to go on our websites to use whatever you find it helpful. The other tools I highly recommend people to explore is the Project Zero's official website. Again, Project Zero has been open source, all their thinking routines, documents, materials online. If you go on PZ's website, you can also look for your own subject teaching. It will list out all the materials and all the thinking routines that's related to that subject. So super helpful. Once you click on it, it will share with you what's the purpose of it, how you apply this in the classroom, and you can just start from there. So there's a lot of useful resources on our websites or on PZ's websites. If you wanted to know more about the detail, and especially if you want to get the first-hand information about the teacher training, so you can sign up for our newsletter. We'll send you for the information for our upcoming teacher training workshop, speech, and all that. Particularly for what I have mentioned earlier, Flossie and I are going to kick off a new rounds of teacher training. Those are open, again, like open to anyone to join. We will use the newsletter to remind everyone when the workshop will be. So feel free to sign up for the newsletter. So this is pretty much toward the end of the presentation. I just wanted to thank you for coming and saying that from curiosity to actions, I think curiosity becomes so powerful when it is structured. So it's so powerful that we have to structure the thinking. We also hope that Seizing Wonder Challenge just give the schools and teachers a leeway and a practical ways to turn the observation into insights, and we can all cultivate a better generation together. So be very glad to explore how this might fit into your classroom, schools, or regions. If you need any further information or need to know something more, feel free to reach out to us. Be happy to answer any kind of questions. So now I think I still have like 7 minutes to answer any kind of questions that people might have. So if you have any questions, you can leave it in the chat box, or if you want to turn on your microphone and ask directly, feel free to do that. Thank you. Okay. Yep, I'm sharing my emails here, so let me put that here. Yeah, for sure. So for the teacher training, particularly what I mentioned earlier about what Flossie and I is going to do is that Flossie and I are going to host it. I remember 6 workshop, 4 seminar. So for that 6 workshop, it will be online webinar, just like what we did today. Like it will be online, but it will be hosted by Flossie. She will directly share her insights firsthand from Harvard about thinking routine and how we use thinking routine to enable student to create with like evidence-based creation. So that is totally open for anyone around the world to join. So if you want, you can just sign up for the newsletter that I just shared. We'll send you the link about the webinar, and then you can join the session that Flossie is going to share. If you're talking about teacher training in your school, specifically, separate from what Flossie is going to share starting from September, send me an email. We can like schedule a call, or we can exchange email about what could be some potential approach to proceed this. Yeah. So someone asking about limitation about the partnership. Oh, yeah, that's a very good question. So right now, the Seizing Wonder Challenge is only limited for middle schooler and high schooler. It's not younger. The reason behind it is not like primary school student cannot join. They can join for sure. University student can join for sure. It's just that when we design the challenge, we want to make sure we have a aiming target group so that the challenge, the difficulty of it is aiming for that specific age group, which means for primary school student, it might be a little bit too difficult. For university student, it might be a little bit too simple. But that is why we are aiming it for middle school or high schooler. But if it's for students that's outside of this age group, they can still join. So there's no limitation about they have to get certain English level before they can join this challenge because this challenge will be hosted in either English or Mandarin. So if you're a teacher teaching in Mandarin, Chinese is not a problem. So how to raise curiosity in the kids? Like I mentioned about the previous example, in Massachusetts, in Easterdo. Like that kind of picture really is very, very, very interesting to a lot of students, no matter about the age group. So being aware of that kind of photos or that kind of image, save it and share it with your kids. Usually that will spark a very nice conversation between you and your kids. And that will also spark their curiosity. Okay. So how can we get involved, collaborate, and extend our work? So, so the question about you have one preschool and all that, I think preschool is probably a little bit too young to join the challenge, but and I think right now it's more like the trainings or the material or the like even like the online workshop we host is open to anyone. If it's open to anyone to join, that's totally possible. Other than that, right now it's probably a little bit too difficult to really collaborate with preschool. It's a little bit too young for us. I don't think we are knowledgeable enough to provide very helpful support at this moment, but we are hoping that one day we might be able to cover all the age group. So another question about Asia perspective. As you know, Asia is more looking for score exam and how could we possibly do CC Wonder system while my parents won't argue with the score. That's a good question. So this challenge is hosted during the weekend. I'm hoping that you might still have some time to do it in the weekend, especially for the first two rounds. It takes about an hour or 2 hour over the weekend online. And for the 3 day hackathon, it's probably the most challenging piece that the parent might think this is not relevant to the scores or exam. That's true. But since this is already the fifth year that we've been doing this, a lot of the students who go into the university or apply for the university, they share their experience in the challenge with the admission office about how this has broadened their horizon and really start to think in new perspective. And I think a lot of them do impress the admission. So I don't know whether that might be a good answer to your parents, but a lot of students do think this is very helpful for as a lifelong skills. Okay, so yeah, that's actually a good question about implementation in other continents. We'd love to make it happen in other continents. It's not happening yet because that's exactly why we are looking for partners in other organizations to make it happen because for us to cover or like broadcasting it to in Europe, as you can possibly imagine, we don't really have the network or the people we know to share this information to. So just cold calling, sending it to school may not work, but having some reliable and trustworthy partners in Europe to try to share this with more European schools, and inviting them to join the online session. And if they passed it, they can also fly to Taiwan to join the 3 day hackathon. That would be amazing. That would be the beautiful picture we would love to see. So it's not implemented in the in Europe, Africa, or not even in the US yet. But we would love to make it happen and see if we can push for that direction. So if you are coming from specific organizations or schools, in the different continents. We'd love to invite you to join us um, in the challenge next year. So we'll be kicking off a new rounds of challenge in September. So feel free to follow us or sign up for the newsletter. We will send you the information when the new rounds is started. Okay. Um, Let me see if I missed some of the question earlier. Um, okay, I think I probably covered most of the questions already. Okay. Okay. So I see someone say UK, small experience, good connection with school. Sure. I'm like super happy to like you can share our websites to like any like connections or anyone that you think might be interested in joining the challenge. Even if your schools wanted to join it, your class, you want to share this with your school like students and ask your student to try it out, like happy to like welcome anyone around the world to do it. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for the session today. I just want to pass the floor back to Jamie. And thank you so much for coming today. I hope you learned something new and get some useful takeaway with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Maggie, for the workshop. That's been I learned a lot. Hopefully, everyone else has as well. So that's the end of the webinar for today. For everyone that's joined us, if you've registered online, you will get the recording by email, but you can also find it on the event page. And then also stay tuned for future events. You will get emails about it, or you can also check out the HundrED events page to keep up to date with the things that are going on with us. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us, and I'll see you all next time.
Thank you. Thank you, Jamie.
Bye.
Bye.